So you have Nicolas Maduro and Donald Trump have both confirmed that the United States and Venezuela have been engaged in secret talks in order to resolve this whole crisis. The United States wants Maduro to step down, and Maduro wants to run his own country. So Nicolas Maduro, what he said specifically was, I confirmed that for months there have been contacts between senior officials from Donald's government and from the Bolivarian government over which I preside, with my express and direct permission. So they've had these secret meetings with, one of his underlings. So Maduro, he said, we've had secret meetings in secret places with secret people that nobody knows. Sure, there's been contact, and we will continue having contact. Just recently, Dictator Don had stopped a ship of 25 tons of soy and soy products in Panama to keep them from entering into Venezuela. So this is the United States government stopping food, and they've also stopped medicine from going into Venezuela. If we cared so much about the Venezuelan people, then why in the goddamn fuck are we blocking food and medicine from going into Venezuela? So after the 25 tons of soy, the 25 tons of food, the soy food and soy products was taken into custody, Russia is going to rush to sign a deal to send the Navy, their Navy, to Venezuela after the unacceptable U.S. moves. Now, Russia has a reason to anchor their boats in the Western Hemisphere. So Russia has declared that it would forever defend Venezuela. So that's great. We're just building a nice, friendship between Russia and Venezuela. The U.S. government, the plan is to impose sanctions and hardships upon the entire nation of Venezuela so that their people hurt as much as possible until they pop and then oust their own government. So the U.S. and Brazil are playing naval war games close to the Venezuelan border. Donald has been pushing the U.S. Navy to impose a naval blockade for months. A U.S. Naval Commander, Craig Fowler, said on the blockade with Venezuela, I won't speak to details of what we're planning and what we're doing, but we remain ready to implement policy decisions, and we remain on the balls of our feet. If we really cared for humanity in general, we haven't done shit when it comes to Yemen and Myanmar. These are two very obvious genocides happening right before the world's eyes for the past 2 years. So far, 230,000 people in Yemen have been murdered. 230,000. That's 10 times the shooting of El Paso. 22 were killed in El Paso. 230,000 have been killed in Yemen. And it's because Saudi Arabia is the one that's imposing on it directly with U.S. Cover and protection in the United Nations. 230,000. 230,000 is more than 1/3 of all the deaths in the American Civil War. 230,000 is 77 9/11s. And yet the U.S. doesn't even act like it's going to help Yemen and Myanmar out. In fact, they stand on the opposite side. Donald vetoed Congress over giving weapons to Saudi Arabia. He really wanted to give the weapons to one of the biggest terrorist nations on the planet, and they're the main culprit in the Yemeni genocide. So we are helping, not only are we not helping the Yemeni people out, but we're actually helping the oppressors and the aggressors and the murdering sacks of shit. So the Venezuelan Cold War, I guess you could say, began when Donald declared by presidential tweet that Venezuela had a brand new president on January 23rd, 2019. Never mind that Juan Guaido had never received a single vote from a single Venezuelan citizen to become president. So he just raised his hand. Okay, you there, you're the new president. So it's obvious for anybody who's actually paying attention to this whole Venezuela-U.S. crisis to see what's actually happening. Right before that presidential tweet, the U.S. government had met with the CEOs of all the major U.S. oil companies, and the oil companies all gathered on, the very eve of the Venezuelan Cold War. So they're going to, essentially plot over who is going to divvy up the oil fields of Venezuela, which I think is in the top 5, if not the top 1 or 3. They have the biggest oil fields in the world. So after that presidential decree, there's this crisis. All the diplomats had to get out of the embassy within 3 days, and then it was extended to 1 month. So all the U.S. diplomats in the U.S. embassy are now gone. There's 3 oil refineries that the U.S. had took over along the Gulf of Mexico, since I guess it's on American soil. They went ahead and took it over. Shit go, I don't know what what has happened with it, because that's Venezuelan associated, if not outright owned. There's $1 billion worth of gold, and the Bank of England went ahead and stole $1 billion worth of gold from Venezuela. The electric grids in Venezuela just keep on magically shutting down for no apparent reason whatsoever. So this, you know, whatever forces are at work here, they are, you know, destabilizing Venezuela. So they shut their electric grids down twice, stolen their oil refineries, stolen their gold. They're talking about, you know, imposing this blockade if they haven't already done so. They're doing war games right along Brazil, so that's right along their border. And they're pretending to get food for the Venezuelan people. There was that Trojan horse, the poison pill, where they said, you know, where the United States government had said that this is humanitarian aid. Yeah, so we cared about the Venezuelan people so much, right? We want to give them food and humanitarian aid. It wasn't a Trojan horse. And yet we're going to block humanitarian aid. We're going to block food and medicine from Venezuela. Our 2017-2019 sanctions has caused 40,000 Venezuelans to die. So our sanctions, Donald Trump's sanctions, has already caused the deaths of 40,000 Venezuelans in the past 2 to 3 years. So 40,000 dead. Yeah, I'm sure we really give a goddamn fuck about the Venezuelan people. That's just like Chile. They got toppled in 1973 for electing a socialist president. Obama had imposed some sanctions too. Both are doing it by executive order. This is, you know, they're dictators. That's what executive orders are. And Donald Trump had killed the Dreamers program by executive order. You know, he's a dictator, so that's what dictators do. So far, Donald Trump has issued 120 executive orders. Nobody in the United States is allowed to do any kind of business with Venezuela. These Venezuelan sanctions of Donald's aren't just imposed on the Venezuelan people, they're imposed upon all of us Americans too. These sanctions are intensifying the Cold War on Venezuela. These embargoes and these taking their soy products, shutting down their electric grid, stealing their oil refineries, stealing their gold. So, and then there's an impending, if not already operational, international blockade that's, you know, that's right there on Brazil's corner that we know so far. And then you heard that quote from that general saying, we're not going to tell you what we're already doing or what we're about to do. And Donald has been pushing for this blockade for months. So they're going to quarantine Venezuela. And Dwight D. Eisenhower did a blockade against Guatemala in 1954. And then the CIA overthrew the head of government of Guatemala's. So the U.S. has a long history of toppling popular governments in her sister continent to the south. The NSA National Security Advisor John Bolton said that countries of the world now have to choose which side are you on. Which side are you on? So Maduro was elected president by a majority of his own people twice. Donald wasn't even elected once by the majority of his own people. He lost by 3 million votes. So 2 elections. Nicolas Maduro has won 2 elections. He won by a 51% margin in 2013, which was 1 month after Hugo Chavez had died of cancer at a very young age. What Juan Guaido is doing is not constitutional. This is very much just, you know, a Venezuelan citizen who is willing to be a puppet for U.S. imperialism. And May 20th, 2018, so he won 1 election in 2013, so 1 presidential election by the majority of the Venezuelan people. And then in 2018, Nicolas Maduro won 68% of the Venezuelan people's vote. So then he won his second 6-year term as president of Venezuela. So 2018, he was elected president, so he's only got to serve his second term for 1 year, still 5 years left. In 2002, there's this one time under Baby Bush, the U.S. tried to assassinate Hugo Chavez, and he was captured. There was a coup d'etat, and then eventually Hugo Chavez is released and then comes out even more popular and victorious than ever. So that about nearly toppled the Venezuelan government. Hugo Chavez also donated heating oil to poor folks in the United States when he was president of Venezuela. So I miss Nicolas Maduro. It's just clear as day what's happening between our government and Venezuela. There's no danger that's coming from Venezuela whatsoever. The Venezuelan people's never done me hard. never done me hard, never done me no wrong. So the Venezuelan people's never done me any harm. They've never attacked me. They've never said they were going to attack me. So they pose absolutely no threat to our nation. And so why are we, playing these stupid games? Because they are a socialist country, because they have a shit ton of oil. They haven't done anything to us. So when it comes to what's, rightful and what's righteous, you have a right to defend yourself, but we haven't been attacked or invaded. And very much, if Venezuela was doing the same war games to the United States, stealing, the U.S. government gold, stealing oil refineries, imposing embargoes and sanctions, and doing all the shit that the U.S. would very much take that as being antagonistic, as which they should. So, yeah, the Venezuelan people don't pose any threat to me now, but they could. If we, they don't want, there's a big-ass petition. Millions of the Venezuelan people have signed a petition saying they don't want the U.S. to intervene. And so there was Nicolas Maduro's son who said that if there is an invasion of Venezuela, then there's going to be boots and guns on the ground in New York, and then they're going to take over Washington, D.C. And so this is serious shit. And there is no, threat from Venezuela now. But if there is a war, then there will be a war. It won't be terrorism. It'll be, soldiers. And it could also invite international allies of Venezuela to, attack us too. They're right there in the mainland. These oceans have protected us pretty well. So this is just giving, a reason for Russia to anchor into our hemisphere. So yeah, I'm definitely opposed to this shit. This is bullshit. And, Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders are very strong when it comes to war with Venezuela. I haven't heard anybody else talk about this, so only Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders actually are, pretty accurate in Venezuela. They're not railing on it, but they've made their feelings known. And all you got to really do is just say how you feel one time. So, yeah, what the fuck? Come on, America. We can do better than this. Peace out.